I've got physical copies here.
Cool.
There it is.
Oh, awesome. Bag of Max, Bag of Cass, it's called.
Yeah, I have no idea what it means. That's all Zach. Like, haven't had the heart to ask yet.
This is White Centipede Noise Podcast, where we give language to noise. I'm Oscar Brummel, and today my guest is Lucas Abela, formerly known as Justice YELDHAM, the legendary Australian noise artist renowned for his precarious and ecstatic live performances, playing a large piece of broken glass with his face. Lucas has toured the world tirelessly and is deeply embedded in international DIY culture. He also runs the label Dual Plover, has collaborated with Death Grips on their album Year of the Snitch, and has created numerous wild participatory sound art installations. Lucas has a new collab album with Zach Hill called Bag of Max, Bag of Cass, coming out on Warp Records this October 31st. This is part 1 of the episode with Lucas. The full 1.5-hour episode is available on Patreon, along with our entire archive of full-length podcast episodes, exclusive WCN TV content, and much more. If you'd like to support White Centipede Noise Podcast and get more from it, visit patreon.com/White Centipede Noise. Thank you to our current Patreon supporters who make this independent project possible. White Centipede Noise Podcast is sponsored by Rural Isolation Project. Visit ruralisolationproject.com, ruralisolationproject.bandcamp.com, or look out for them at a distro near you. Hello, Lucas, and welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast.
G'day. Good to be here.
Good evening. We have quite a time difference here, you being in Australia and me being in Germany, so your evening is my morning, but it's cool that we're able to make this work. And you being quite a road dog traveler, you've toured so extensively the whole planet.
Well, like my primary focus, especially in the first 20 years, I suppose, was live performance, and that's all I really cared about. I didn't really care about my recordings or my albums or that kind of thing. If people asked me to do a record, I'd send them a couple of random live recordings and say, have fun with that. And I know exactly, that's one of them. And they're good documents of a time and place, but I always feel that noise music's best enjoyed in the presence and in space. Like one of the things I've always considered, especially back then, was like you're not only playing a piece of glass, you're playing the room, the space, everything's important, and that can never be captured on a record. So I never thought the recording medium was important to me because I didn't think it represented what I was doing in any way, shape, or form besides a souvenir for people to take home and pop on their shelf. Like I think you'd be insane to put that record on at home and try and enjoy it. Like it might give you an indication of what the night was like, but it would never ever. It's impossible to capture.
Especially with what you do, it's so much of it is like this really intense kind of threatening. I mean, there are other artists who explore really dark things, and their performances might involve blood or something like that. But you don't seem to be really focusing on that. But still, you have a bloody performance, and that's always really arresting and like just physically intense to see.
I could be covered in blood in the show and make a little farty sound and get the audience to laugh.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing, the intention behind it was never a threat, or was never a violent spectacle, or even though some people did treat it like that, but it was always more an invitation. I found the glass gave people, it gave people something to focus on. It also gave people this anxiety about the glass, which made a focused attention that I didn't think you could capture any other way. But at the same time, the sounds I was making were quite humorous and fun. I think the whole performance was, one of my least favorite parts of the noise genre is the people that want you to leave the room, the people that want to make so much noise. I'm so badass, I'm making such ear-splitting, unbelievable, awful noise that everyone's going to leave, and I'm really proud of the fact that people want to leave. Mm-hmm. I always wanted people to come into the room. I wanted people to come close to me, to gather, to commune, to be part of a ritual, so to speak, of what I was doing. And I thought that's what elevated what I was doing over some of the people that just like to be tough or think that girls tied up in ropes on a cover of an album is cool, that kind of stuff,
Yeah. But it is an interesting paradox because when you see just the images, it is threatening. It evokes some sort of kind of deep connection to the body and violence and and harm. But you're doing it in such ease and such joy, and and especially when you see it or you see the sound, it's like you're really playing your voice. I mean, that's one thing I noticed is that you use the glass, and when someone would say, "Oh, I make noise or experimental music with glass," you think of the sound of breaking glass, the sound of percussive glass, or scraping. And that comes at the end, perhaps, but you're really playing it like a wind instrument.
Vocalist at the end of the day,
Yeah.
The glass is it like a boundary microphone, I suppose, of sorts. But watch I purse on my lips like got a piece up here, just floating around, and so like when I play, it's like, and what I'm doing is really quite quiet. Like a lot of people think I'm screaming into the glass. Sorry, I didn't mean to peek you there.
Yeah.
But I'm never screaming. It's always, always small and very gestural kind of things I'm doing with the glass.
I have some questions about that because you're doing this with your fingers.
Oh, that's
is that theatrical, or is that are you actually manipulating sound? Because I mean, obviously, it looks like you're playing some sort of buttons on a reed or a woodwind instrument. But is that affecting the glass, or is that just kind of a part of your gestures to make it feel right for you?
That stuff started unconsciously.
Yeah.
Never really thought about it until people started pointing it out. But I think in ways I'm kind of dampening the glass in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something that happened through the evolution of the instrument. The first time I picked it up, I played it live that night, the day I thought of it. Like I was sound checking something else, and there was some broken glass in the corner of the room because we were setting up a warehouse space. And I picked it up, put my microphone on it. I tried it for a second in sound check, and then performed it that night. And I've been kind of evolving with it ever since. And a lot of those first shows were quite crude. Like there's a video of that first show, and you compare that what I'm doing with the glass now, it's like chalk and cheese.
Does the approach you take to it have anything to do with didgeridoo?
Not at all. Not at all. But saxophonist friends of mine have commented to me that I circular breathe, which is something I never really taught myself. It's just I'm not even sure if I'm doing it right, but because I'm constantly making the sounds with them, and I'm still there are I guess similar techniques to the didgeridoo, but the didgeridoo is not something I thought about when I first started doing it. Like I'd been playing a lot of metal objects, like I guess the glass evolved from turntablism. Like I originally started off as an experimental turntablist, and I had needles on my fingers. I had lots of broken records. I had motorized turntables spinning at really fast speeds, and I used to use knives, swords, and springs and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then one trip to Japan, my first ever international tour, I couldn't take my motors with me, so I bought a new set of motors at a market in Osaka. Attached my little discs to them and stuff, got my implements and tried to play them, but the motors were too weak and whatnot. So I started putting these knives and other implements that I had amplified at the time, which had turntable cartridges on them attached to a knife, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I started sticking them in my mouth, and I really loved the freedom my mouth gave me. I think the mind to music ratio is so much easier to maintain through the vocals or internally than it is through a percussive sense. So get my musical ideas out more readily through an implement in my mouth. And then eventually I was playing lots of different things in my mouth. And then, as I said, I found the glass. And not only did I like the resonant properties of the glass, I liked that it was clear and you could see my vocal techniques through it, which gave it a theatrical sense. And as I said, I did a lot of my career before that did pedal in danger, like, bounding on amplified trampolines with swords and all that kind of stupid things I used to do. And I like the element of danger because it kind of changed up what improvisation was in my mind. Like if the situation's dangerous, then my improvisation will be affected by that, and the decisions made won't be purely my mind's decisions. There'll be some instinctual decisions made. So it would break up what improvisation can be. And because I've always been randomness has always been a pure motivator of mine. Even when I was, doing turntable stuff, it was just everything was random. I never practiced, never rehearsed. I started off as a radio performer and doing that kind of thing. And same with the glass. I never, like for the longest time, I never played it at home. I only played it on stage, and every new trick or technique was always developed in front of people in the pressure of the moment, which made improvisation more interesting to me than just going through a range of ideas that you're predetermined or whatnot.
Do you think the danger of it really reinforces the ability to be present in the moment for you and for the audience?
Well, the danger is like something that helps you leave yourself and become something else. Like it's hard to not sound like a wanker when you talk this way, but like I sometimes think of the glass as like lying on a bed of nails or walking across hot coals. This situation of having this sharp implement on my face, and the way I used to play it was quite reckless in the past. It's not so much now. Like I'm a 50-year-old father of an 8-year-old. But when I watch some of these things back, I hardly even recognize myself. But I think part of it made me forget who I was and just be in that moment. And again, trying to achieve a pure improvisation of some sort. It's hard to get purity in that kind of thing, because you have your situation, you've got your pedals, your glass, you know what you're going to do. But my philosophy of improvisation has always been follow the sound. So I get the glass, make my first note, and just hope that leads me somewhere. And sometimes I'd find an ecstatic space and forget where I am and what I'm doing and everything about me and just be sound. And then there was times where I didn't get the sound I wanted. I'm completely in the present and aware of myself. And it's at those moments that I have terrible shows, and it's the moments I get lost. I feel I have wonderful shows. But at the same point, from my perspective, it's impossible to know what any of the shows were like, because, I was that focal point for everybody else, and it's only the people around me that have any idea what any of those shows were like. Even though I've been at every single one of them, I really, really, really don't know what watching me is like.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. What about injuries? I mean, a piece of glass will cut you really, really easily, and can cut you very severely, very easily. I mean, I can't. When a glass breaks on the floor and you have a kid, it's like, at least at our house, I don't know, maybe it's different at your house with being the glass guy, but it's like, okay, everyone hold on, because a little piece of glass can really slide in and just cut you deep, and you're handling these things all the time in DIY venues, right? Where people, I mean, I don't think they're moshing to it, but I mean, this is a
people have mosh to it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is very ripe for serious injury. Have you been seriously injured?
I've had some run-ins, I suppose. Like I've only been like hospitalizations are quite rare. There's been and they're not really performance accidents. Like when I play, like I smashed the glass over my head. I got a litany of scars on my head.
Yeah.
But I got stitches on my neck once.
Yeah.
And that was one of the only times that I ever intentionally got myself with a glass, because I was opening up for this popular band in Australia called Regurgitator, and they wanted me to open up. But the sound engineer at this place just wasn't having it. He wasn't into it. And he had me at a really low volume, and I was getting frustrated because volume helps me find that space I was describing before.
Of course.
And I wasn't getting that volume. I wasn't feeling the presence of the sound. And I stupidly said, turn it up or I'm going to cut my neck. And he didn't turn it up. And I'm always a man of my word. So I sliced my neck stupidly. That's the only time I ever cut myself on purpose. And I went to hospital. Another time I went to hospital, I cut my finger here. But in that instance, again, issues with sound people. I was playing, going crazy. I was really enjoying myself. Then my sound cut out. Someone had just turned me off. It didn't like what I was doing. So I turned around, and the DJ pops on a record and starts playing some house music. Oh. So I've still got my glass in my hand. I run over to the DJ booth and smashed the glass over his records. And luckily I cut my finger open because the whole room, because it was a hip hop festival and someone thought it'd be fun to have me play. I don't know why, but anyway, the whole room was full of a bunch of white Brisbane hip hop guys, the fucking worst type. Started fronting around me, going, "What are you doing, attacking the DJ?" Because he was scratching or some shit. And then I held up my hand, and the hands just all this blood streaming down my arm, and they all back off like idiots they were, and some friends shuttled me off to the hospital.
Wow.
The only 2 times I've been to hospital, except for I had accidents prior to the glass. Like I cut my wrist here. I think you can see that scar a bit. But that was with the drum cymbal that tore through my arm, which was attached to one of those motors I was speaking of earlier. Mm-hmm. And the glass also did this one on my wrist in. I get it there. See it there in Tenerife. But that was I had a show in London the next day, so I didn't want to go to the hospital, so I just wrapped the bandage around it, got on the plane, and I remember taking the bandage off in this green room in London, and one of the tendon had caught onto this gauze. So when I pulled that off, that was the most extreme pain I've ever felt in my life. Is pulling the gauze off the tendon because it kind of seized together. And anyway, now I'm getting gory, and I always fret about like the attention people put on the gory part of what I do. Even though it is a part of what I do, I started at one point, like a little bit before COVID, I started kind of rejecting it because people started coming to the shows yelling blood.
Yeah.
People complained to me after a show if I didn't cut myself. And back then it was like 10% of the time I might have an accident. Most of the shows I didn't. Anyway, and that's kind of like I started performing kneeling, and I started being more conscious. I stopped breaking it on my head because I started to reject that notion that this is what people are here for, and I wanted people to stop coming for that reason. So, and I still play on my knees to this day, and I kind of like it now. It's gone from this ecstatic experience to this more meditative experience, which is kind of strange.
What is your personal relationship to pain? I mean, are you it's still notable that you've chosen to work with a tool, and even before the glass, that causes you some pain, will cut you. I mean, that's not something most people can deal with or choose to do.
Yeah.
Do you know where that comes from originally, or what is your relationship to pain throughout the years and including now?
Oh no, I remember as a child having a fascination with my own blood. Every time I'd cut myself, I would watch it stream, all that kind of thing. Never really noticed pain. I've always been quite stoic when it comes to having an accident. I even remember as a child, I'd cut myself. I probably wouldn't even notice that I was bleeding until someone pointed it out. That kind of thing. That also happens with the glass. I could be playing a show. I could have cut my face a couple of times, and I didn't even realize until after a show I'm talking to people and they say, maybe you should clean yourself up. It's not until then I've realized that I've cut my lips, or I've cut something and there's blood all over my chin, and I'm completely unaware of it. So like relationship to pain, I know, like I've always felt that pain's more a guide to whether your body's needs help or not. I suppose that something, if you know what it is, you can ignore or not take it face value, or not let it. I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't want to sound like a wanker, but I feel pain the way other people seem to experience it, because it doesn't necessarily bother me in that same sense. But even then, like, I guess also getting back to the states I like to get into when I play, like, I could be handling a piece of glass before a show and accidentally nick my fingers, and I'd feel that. Same time, I won't feel something in the heat of a performance.
Right.
I won't notice. I mean, so it's a mindset in that regard as well.
I saw a video interview of you that seemed to be done fairly recently, where you talked about how you get high when you're playing. It's kind of a natural reaction to playing music, as a musician does. But do you think the pain, perhaps the blood loss, do you think that contributes to the adrenaline and the state that you enter?
True, it's hard to say if my high feeling is the same as any performance high, because, like, I guess all performers have had that in common. Like, if you didn't get that elation out of performing, you maybe you wouldn't do it so much. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if the pain elevates that high, or whether it's just the getting into that deep state. You know, it's like I think, you know, I think it's trying to find those deep states that is what makes it a rush. Like, when you come out of it at the other end, you're very disconfibulated. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? You yeah, it's you've been through something, and you've got this kind of like full, you know, you're fully relaxed by it, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's why you keep going with such things. I don't know, like, I feel I'm going to be playing glass to the day I die, and it's the thing I love to do the most, and yeah, it's much to other people's dismay. Like, why are you still playing the glass? I find it a thing of beauty, and yeah, as long as it continues to make me feel that way, I don't think I'll stop.
You mentioned in the beginning that, you know, you did treat in the past live performance and recording very differently, and that your focus was really on the live performance, and the recording was kind of secondary. But you do have a lot of notable recordings, and, you know, including now, you're coming out very soon, in a few days actually, with a new record with Zach Hill, a collaboration record on Warp Records, which is pretty exciting. Tell me about that record first off, and just kind of how your approach applies to the studio.
Well, I guess I got to pedal back a bit to 2020, or
Yeah.
I found myself in lockdown, and people still wanted me to play or do these live streams, and I quickly figured out that what I did not translate to a live stream. Again, to being in the room, the presence, and all the other elements of a live show did not work. So I still wanted to do these performances. I didn't know when we were going to come out of this. I still wanted to make music, so I started to reevaluate what I did and how I did it, and that's how I transformed my workflow from pedals to modular. Because early on because I had my whole pedal collection here in Sydney, so which I wouldn't normally be able to tour with. So I started doing like 6 parallel chains of pedals just to make it more interesting for me in these streaming sessions. And I'd patch some parallel chains into others and then feed them back into each other, and I'd have, you know, I used to have a lot of filters with had internal envelope followers, and I love them. And someone saw what I was doing and said, "You're trying to use your pedals like they're a modular system. You should look into using modular." In my mind, up until then, I thought, you know, modular synthesizers were essentially synthesizers. All they really do is, you know, oscillate sounds. You can sequence that and run them through. But, you know, I quickly looked online and thought, oh yeah, there's lots of effects in here. They're all stereo. There's, you know, there's preamps, there's recorders, there's envelope followers, and there's frequency trackers, there's delays, there's granular, there's all these tools, and there's so much more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had this love for filters with envelope folders, I started getting really into envelope folders and built myself a spectral envelope folder that has like a 10-channel crossover. So my glass signal is turned into 10 envelopes based on each frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And then all those frequencies would go out into the delays and all throughout my system, the filters and everything. So as I'm playing the glass and making the sound, the dynamics of my playing is shifting the delays and the feedbacks and the filters and the sets on the granular. So the music is moving around without me having to lean down onto the desk and play knobs and freaking sliders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've got the glass turned into this organic material making sound and movement within the sound. And I started thinking to myself, what happens if I had another musician go through these envelope folders and then I just play the glass and their dynamics shift the sound around?
Mm-hmm.
And I just done I was coming off the collaboration with Death Grips, and my mind immediately went to Zach. Because he was a phenomenal drummer. He's a very technical drummer. If I can get him and have all these drums isolated and him playing these crazy things, I could have the hat control the feedback while the tom controls the delay time and so on and so forth. I started having these wild fantasies about it and wrote to him, and he was into the idea, so we ended up doing it. So
Did you do it live in person?
We did the single first, which was Zach sending me stems in order for me to develop a system.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went into the studio with him, I'd have it ready. So when I had the stems, the single with the stems is a little different because I had recordings of his stems, I could slow them down and ramp them. Mm-hmm. So on the single, my glass signals also influencing his drums or the speed of his drums, which are then in turn controlling my effects. And then when we went into the studio, we didn't have the ramping effect, which I actually quite love, but he's playing live and he played V drums. So everything coming to my system was completely clean.
Right.
And so it was all running different things like the snare, the toms, the hi-hats, all that kind of stuff is coming into my system clean. And then controlling the parameters of all different effects in my system. We recorded over 2 days.
Where did you do the recording? You said in Australia?
We did it in LA.
Oh, okay.
And when I first did a couple of things with the single, I sent them over to Zach to see what he thought about them. And the next thing I know, he's made videos for them and put them up on TikTok. So I think you must like it enough to put it on TikTok. Do you mind if I put these out? Because it'd be great to have a single to sell on tour.
Yeah.
And he said yes. So I did the single. Then I went to LA on that tour. Yeah, we recorded October 2023. And then because the single I did so quickly, I recorded, I sent to him, I mixed it down, I put on the single it would have been in under a month or something. I was just really frantically wanted to get the single out before this tour.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've got a passionate hate of post-production. It's probably another one of the reasons I didn't do that much recording in the past. I have been doing a lot more recording now, but anyway, we'll get to that. So Zach gets these recordings and he spends a year with them, like mixing them down. It got to the point where I thought he was pulling my leg and he just didn't want to work with me. Just every time I write to him, he's, yeah, I'm grinding. It's the best stuff ever. I love it. I'll be ready soon. I just thought I really, at about a year's end, I thought nothing's ever going to happen. This recording's not ever going to come out. And then one day he writes, it's done. Here it is. I think I took a year, and then it's taken another year for him to, originally get it to Warp, and Warp were interested, but I guess their timelines with labels like that are quite slow. So it's finally coming out now, and I'm quite excited. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be on a record on Warp Records, but it's kind of fun. Like I'm proud. I mean, it's a nice moment for me.
I've heard the single, the video. It's very cool, and I'm excited about it. Zach Hill is one of my first gateway artists that got me into noise, because I was into kind of, I don't know, bands like Deerhoof, Shoo Shoo, kind of that 5RC.
You heard Nervous Cop then?
Exactly. And look, I just found the CD. I just shipped my whole collection over from the States. This is probably one of the first 3 or 5 noise CDs I ever got. I found it at a record store. And for me, it was so attractive because it was like, I was into Hella. I was into Deerhoof, and it was like, I was just getting into noise, and it was like, the drummer from Hella and Deerhoof make a noise record, and it features Joanna Newsom on harp, who I also loved at the time. And so I hadn't listened to it in so many years. I played it yesterday. It's really good. It's really fun. And so, yeah, Nervous Cop. And so it's kind of interesting, kind of full circle. And at some point, I didn't really realize he was in Death Grips. You know, that's kind of a thing I kind of glossed over at some point as, you know, musical taste gets more scattered and varied. And like, you know, I didn't realize he was part of Death Grips. And you've been collaborating with him for quite a long time, it seems.
Well, we first collaborated in 2010 before Death Grips was even a thing.
Right.
He was touring through with the Boredoms, and I wrote to Hisham actually because I can't remember. I think I had a loose connection to Hisham from is it Black Dice. Anyway, I wrote to Hisham and said, "Do you guys want to do sideshows?" And they said yes. And I wrote to Zach, and Zach. I think Zach proposed the idea of us doing a duet because I don't remember actually proposing that myself. Anyway, we did a duet in 2010, and that was it. We hadn't heard from each other in ages. And then I was going to tour the US in 2017, I believe. And I was in I had a date in San Francisco, and I had to go due East, and Sacramento was in my line. So I thought, I remember Zach lives in Sacramento. I should ask him if he can help me set up a show there. So I wrote him, and he said, no, don't bother playing here. Why don't you come and record with Death Grips? And at that point,
This is the end of part 1 with Lucas. The full episode is 1.5 hours long and available on Patreon, where we go on to discuss being in the studio with Death Grips, wild stories from the road, the elusive Neckhold brothers, making noise on the radio while living in his car, his label Dual Plover, Australia's little band scene, and much, much more. Patreon is also where you'll find the entire archive of full-length podcast episodes and a load of exclusive noise content, supported directly by the people who make this product possible. If you want to check out the rest of this episode and help keep this podcast going, go to patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise. Thank you.